as you drift toward rest. Imagine yourself reclining somewhere warm and safe, your breath calm and steady, while above you an unhurried ballet of engineering unfolds around a star. If this kind of gentle science helps you relax, feel free to softly tap like and subscribe. And if you want more sleepy learning while your eyes grow heavy, the playlist link in the description is there to carry you along as you drift. What city country are you watching from right now? Now, settle in and imagine a Dyson swarm that is not a single megastructure, but a patient constellation of countless modest machines, each quietly doing its part, as predictable as tides and as calm as a slow sunrise. Picture the star's light, not harsh or blinding, but softened through the distance and through the veil of your imagination. The warmth of it spreads in every direction, like a gentle breath on a cold window, and around it, spread through a great volume of space, the collectors and habitats and mirrors have found their lanes. They are not crowded. There is room to drift and to adjust, and there is time, so much time, to tend them. You find yourself floating near a maintenance platform, not with the rush of a cinematic adventure, but with the small, daily motions of a caretaker. The platform is a long, slow spindle with a soft rotation that makes a whisper in the thin air within its shells. Its windows are filters, tinting the sunlight into hues that comfort tired eyes. The surfaces inside are matte and slightly textured, like smooth stone that has been warmed by day. There is no loud alarm, no urgent voice, only the serene cadence of status tones that rise and fall with a musical sort of regularity, like the quiet notes of a meditation bell heard from a distance. Beyond the window, a collector tile turns almost imperceptibly. The tracking motors move with a patience that you can almost feel in your shoulders, a gentle easing, a fraction of a degree every few minutes, aligning the reflective surface to meet the photons that have already been traveling since before your last nap. Each tile in the swarm is modest, sometimes no larger than a field, sometimes only as big as a room, thin as a leaf, sturdy as a promise. They are made to zip light, to warm their own circuits, and to send energy downstream along channels that flicker in ways your eyes cannot see. The gentle rhythm continues, and as it continues, your breathing finds a companion in that unhurried pulse. The phrase Dyson swarm can seem grand, and it is grand, yet the day-to-day experience of keeping it healthy is small and soothing. You change filters, you watch numbers become lines, and lines become smooth. You check panels for dust, not with frantic scrubbing, but with the measured sweep of soft brushes that hum with electrostatic fields, convincing motes of carbon and silicate to drift away as if persuaded by a calm voice. In the sunlight, the specks glitter faintly as they depart, and the mirror takes a breath it did not know it had been holding. Maintenance feels like that, a release, a loosening, an easing into the next routine. Imagine the collectors themselves. Some are reflective, simple heliostats that redirect Some are absorptive and dark, sipping photons and coaxing them into electricity by the steady patience of semiconductor junctions. The cells are layered like fine pastry, thin and delicate, yet robust in their simplicity, each layer selected for how it drinks a specific color of light. Over time, the layers age in tiny, predictable ways. The sun's particles and the vacuum's silence slowly change their properties, and the plan for the swarm has accounted for this in a way that creates no urgency at all. Each panel knows when it will need rest. Each module knows how to share the load so that no one piece and no one caretaker has to hurry. The gentle rhythm continues. Station keeping might sound dramatic, but here it is a practice in balancing whispers. Light itself is the first and gentlest thruster. A slight tilt turns a sea of photons into a guiding hand, and the tile drifts back toward its assigned lane over days and weeks. On the edges of many collectors are narrow strips of reflective sail material, curlable, furlable, adjusted by tiny motors that make sounds like breath through reeds. They open just enough to let sunlight nudge the orbit. Then they close again. Reaction wheels spin, but slowly, and eddy currents grip magnetic fields and dissipate with a soft, sighing patience that you feel in the calm of your own spine. When motion does need a touch more persuasion, there are photon thrusters and micro-ion thrusters that glow faintly, a dim blue like the edge of morning. They sip inert gas or even evaporated metals from reservoirs that are measured in decades, each pulse calculated with the easy confidence of a caretaker who keeps a garden log. There is no racing, only the kindness of a plan that allows changes to shape themselves over long days. Telemetry shows this in slender plots that bend gently, arcs and circles and slow waves. You check them while leaning back, noticing the comfort of the seat, the quiet support beneath your shoulders, the slight scent of warmed polymer, and the faint metallic hint of fresh machined parts. Think of the swarm's choreography not as a dance, but as a patient cue. Orbits are chosen like lanes on a wide, calm road. Inclinations differ so that two craft rarely cross. Longitudes are offset. Phasing is scheduled. There is a registry, softly glowing, that everyone in the maintenance team can read with ease. A living map that changes without abruptness. A collector that needs a repair drifts to a service orbit with the help of gentle light pressure and small thruster whispers. A service skiff meets it with practiced grace, anchors with soft magnetic pads, and shares a morning together. Panels unfold on the skiff's belly like a picnic mat, small tools magnetized to their spots, and two robotic arms stretch like sleepy cats before they begin. Micrometeoroids visit from time to time, but rarely do they do more than flick a grain of dust at a corner. The swarm is designed for this inevitability. Layers of material are laminated in fine sheets that allow damage to spread itself thinly. The edges of a puncture bond with a slow curing resin that weeps into the wound and stiffens with sunlight and time, like a tiny lake freezing at dusk. When a repair is needed, self-healing film can offer, the skiff's arms peel back a tile with the same patience you might use to open the page of a fragile book. The replacement slides into place. A gentle warmth cures the bonding layer. A sensor hums, and the reading returns to its familiar, stable number. The gentle rhythm continues. Communication across the swarm is as calm as low tide. Lasers link neighbors with thin needles of light, but the power is low and the beams are precise, like whispers across a quiet room. Each device keeps time with an onboard clock that is so dependable you begin to think of it as a friend with excellent habits. The network has a pulse that you can sense even with your eyes closed. Housekeeping packets roll by at steady intervals, carrying temperatures, voltages, orientations, and a few simple heartbeat flags. There is a trance-like quality to watching them go, to seeing a petabyte-scale infrastructure reduce itself to the serenity of little signals that mean everything is fine. Imagine the energy channels, not as torrents of lightning, but as rivers that have found their bedrock. Some move energy as microwaves, spreading gently but with intention toward rectifying antennas that convert the glow into current. Some convey power as light, reflected through relays with a soft discipline that never startles. The safety margins are roomier than they strictly need to be, because the point of this system is composure. Everything is designed to fail soft, to degrade gracefully, to ask politely for attention rather than demand it with urgency. A resonator warms just a bit too much, and in response, an algorithm suggests a slight spectral shift, a minor pause, a later resumption. Nothing snaps. There is patience. Cooling is a quiet pleasure here. The star is generous with heat, and radiators must return that gift to space with a gentle hand. Thin veils spread behind collectors like the tails of very slow comets, their surfaces dark and textured to release warmth as light in wavelengths that slide away into the abyss. Fluid loop pumps are soft, steady murmurs, like a sleeping animal's breath. Vapor chambers carry heat with no sloshing, no chatter, only capillaries drawing warmth toward the wide night. The fluid itself carries a faint metallic scent that never becomes sharp, never becomes alarming. When a radiator shows a slightly dusty albedo, you send out a tender cleaning drone that dances as slowly as a leaf on still water, brushing without pressure, persuading the dust to depart as if out of courtesy. The gentle rhythm continues. You might think of materials and supply, and even this, often a source of stress, becomes restful on the scale of a star. The swarm was born from the careful mining of nearby rocks, from the soft rumble of mass drivers that nudge pallets of ore with the regularity of a heartbeat. Nothing is thrown. Everything becomes a feedstock. Silicates become glass and thin fiber. Metals become frames and conductors. Carbon becomes lattices that are both strong and airy, like a cathedral of foam. The factories are not loud. They purr. Vacuum deposition coats films with decorations of atoms, each layer watch a ribbon of mirror emerge from a slot like a slow waterfall of silver. It gathers into a roll under the protective gaze of a gentle light that keeps the temperature perfect. You take a breath and note how the roll reflects a soft, distorted version of your face. Then you let that thought dissolve into the larger, easier awareness of process and continuity. Self-repair is not magical here. It is simply practiced. A panel that senses its capacitor losing grace asks for a visitor. The visitor, a small buddy drone, arrives with time to spare. It walks along the panel with magnetized feet that click so faintly it sounds like rain far away. It opens a compartment the size of a fingertip and slides out a component the size of a grain of rice. It replaces it with a new one that waited patiently inside the skiff like a wrapped gift. The old part is catalogued, warmed gently to drive off any trapped gases, and stored for recycling. The log receives a new line, and that line is then absorbed into a weekly report whose numbers are pleasingly predictable. The gentle rhythm continues. Imagine, too, the human layer, or the layer of patient minds, whether human or allied software, that stands behind it all. There are operators on the night shift who prefer dim light and the company of quiet displays. Their fingers return again and again to the same keys and the same mugs and the same notebooks. Each has a unique handwriting that grows rounder and softer in the later hours. Notes about minor variations in current draw are written with the same care as notes about the taste of a cup of tea. There is a culture of gentle pride here, a knowledge that excellence does not need to be loud. The most admired entries in the logbook are the boring ones, the ones that read like a lullaby. Nominal. You feel your shoulders drop every time you read that word. Calendars stretch. There are seasons in a Dyson swarm, not with storms and blossoms, but with graceful changes in geometry. Some orbits align more favorably with the needs of downstream habitats at certain times, and so power routing shifts, not with a leap, but with a drift. The software that guides this uses language that is half math, half poetry, the variables arranged like stones across a shallow river. The model forecasts loads and angles, and the recommendation is displayed in a font that could lull a room to sleep. You approve with a nod, and the shift begins in 100 places at once, so slow and so smooth that if you were not watching, you would never know it was happening at all. The gentle rhythm continues. Mass flows are a quiet laboratory of their own. Catchers receive shipments of refined feedstock on soft trajectories, arriving like dandelion seeds that never quite land. Electromagnetic nets cradle them and begin to spin in the opposite direction, drinking away their remaining momentum without a clank, without a thunk, just a long, soft deceleration that opens a window for you to admire the star at a slightly different angle. Finished parts leave the factories with similarly soft edges on their motion, guided by beam shepherds that shape their path the way a hand shapes the fall of a scarf. Some beams push with radio waves, carefully phased. Others push by shining light on tiny sails that know how to capture it. It is all very unhurried and very kind. A Dyson swarm's heart is not at its center, changes are like skin, and the quiet repair is like sleep. When a component rests, when a collector angles itself for the best morning light, when a skiff parks in the shade of its own radiator and allows heat to flow outward in a long exhale, the system renews itself. You too can feel that renewal just by thinking about it, as if noting the cooling of those radiators helps your own mind release the day's warmth and settle toward an even steadier pulse. Imagine the software guardians as companions who do not tire. They comb through streams of housekeeping values the way a breeze explores trees. The breeze does not shake anything hard. It brushes and samples and learns what is ordinary. When a sign falls out of rhythm, a motor that draws a few milliamps more than last month, a temperature that rises a fraction of a degree above its slow cycle, the guardians suggest a gentle response. They place little flags, like paper bookmarks, and then ask for follow-up in the weekly cycle. There are no klaxons, there are only polite suggestions. The team discusses these suggestions in voices that rarely rise above a soft conversational hum. Someone remembers that this motor has always warmed slightly on the first day of the month. Someone else points out that the resonance of a particular frame changes with the direction of the sun. The room nods. A timeline is set, not for today, not for tonight, but for a week from now, allowing the pattern to reveal itself. The gentle rhythm continues, on long time scales, coating slowly brown. Polymers become a bit stiffer. Adhesion layers relax. None of this is a surprise. There is a schedule, and it reads like an almanac. At year 5, the first cleaning is due. At year 10, the reflectivity test. At year 15, a partial refresh of the optical stack. The kits for these procedures are always ready, stored in climate-controlled cradles that withdraw just enough heat to keep materials well within their happy range. When the day comes, nothing feels like a procedural checklist so much as a ritual that comforts. The skiff travels. It orients itself so that the star sits just beyond the shade panel, glowing softly at the edge of the frame. The arm extends. The new layer unfurls like a ribbon. It settles without wrinkles because the entire structure is warmed to a gentle, uniform temperature. You feel a sense not of accomplishment, but of continuation. The gentle rhythm continues. If you look closely, you see that not all collectors are the same. Some serve habitats that prefer longer wavelengths for heating water or growing plants gently. Others are tuned for precise electricity generation tasks, feeding magnetic tethers that shape traffic between rings. And some are just mirrors that do no more than redirect light to keep a corridor of open space pleasantly lit. Maintenance differs slightly for each type, like looking after a houseplant that needs a bit more water or a bit more shade. You adjust, slowly. You learn to read the sheen of a surface, to hear the slight change in a pump's note, to see the way a page of the log seems to fold over a memory in your mind. The gentle rhythm continues. The shape and spacing of the swarm are in your favor. There is emptiness, generous and healthy. This is not a crowded city. It is a well-spaced village around a lake, with enough room for paths and meadows between the quiet homes. Collisions are avoided more by design than by reaction, through the kindness of planning and the abundance of space. Each orbit is a promise not to intrude. Each plane is a courtesy, and when the rare corrective motion is called for, perhaps because a solar storm breathed a little more strongly than expected, the motion is made slowly and with wide margins, scheduled in a time window that allows any neighbor to do the same. The culture of the swarm is service, courtesy, and long patience. In the background, a star lives out a life so much longer than any shift or schedule. The light is constant enough to be trusted. There are gentle variations, of course, magnetic cycles that shift the number of speckles on the star's skin. When those cycles move, they do so over years, and the result is a mild nudge in the numbers. The brightness changes a little, the scatter of charged particles changes a little, filters adjust their thresholds, cleaning cycles tick forward or backward by a few days. You watch the slowly breathing star and cannot help but match its pace. Your shoulders drop, your eyelids grow heavy. The gentle rhythm continues. At the edge of all this careful routine lies the art of grounding it to life. People, wherever they are, benefit from the energy that slips through this tranquil machine. Homes glow, gardens hum, laboratories purr. Interesting projects unfold, but they do not need to intrude on the quiet of this scene. It is enough to know that slowly and steadily, warmth and power flow outward, shaped by curators who prefer routine to drama. Imagine being one of those curators, sipping something warm in a mug with a chipped handle and watching another sunlit page of the maintenance log fill with clean, even lines. There are habitats within the swarm, and some of them host small, steady communities who also prefer routine. Their needs are simple on the outside and carefully detailed on the inside. Thermal comfort, pressure that does not change, light that follows a rhythm chosen by those who dwell within. Their caretaking lives fold into the larger quiet of the swarm. They check seals, not because there is trouble, but because they enjoy the confidence that comes from witnessing their integrity. They tend to plants that stretch slowly toward the light. They watch seasons of their own design pass not in weather, but in taste and scent and color. Maintenance, again, is the melody that plays without end, sweet and calm. When building new units, the factories do not rush. They keep the same schedule as the maintenance logs, as if time itself had been invited to participate in quality assurance. Extruders flow at rates that avoid turbulence. Lasers trace patterns that never overheat the glassy substrate. The line pauses whenever a reading wanders, not with frustration, but with the contentment of a system that values gentleness over throughput. Testing benches are warm and quiet. Sensitive microphones listen for vibrations that spell imbalance. Cameras look for speckled reflections that reveal surface roughness, and if they find any, they hum to themselves and assign a brief massage by a soft pad that polishes by moving like a sigh. Then a label prints with a calm font, and a cradle receives the new piece. A transport schedule registers the addition. module retires with dignity. It drifts to a recycle orbit where a gentle kiss of gas slows its path, and then an unhurried arm unweaves it into feedstock. The arm does not chew or tear. It decouples. It remembers. It sets aside a component whose performance is still excellent and sends it to a shelf. It melts a subframe and pours it into a mold that waits in silence. The new shape cools over hours, its warmth easing into the comforting broad wings of a radiator. By the time the piece is ready, the logs have received entries with phrases like "as expected" and "no anomalies." The gentle rhythm continues. Sometimes the sun glints off a mirror and fills the maintenance bay with a soft, honeyed light. The surfaces take on a slightly golden tint, and the ambiance becomes like late afternoon. It is a small pleasure to pause, to lean back, and to watch dust that is not dust, just the tiniest flakes of insulation or the softest fibers, floating in a slow parade through that warm beam. A crew member or a watchful program lowers the blinds by a fraction to keep the sensors unbothered, and the light becomes less direct, more diffuse, even easier on the mind. The soundscape remains, a low, even hum beneath the breath, the occasional distant clack of a connector seating, the subtle whir as a camera retunes its focus. You listen, and you could almost fall asleep right there, in your chair, if you wanted to. The gentle rhythm continues. Data archiving in such a place is unlike the frantic backups of a crisis. Here, archiving is the end of the day's story. Files line up in a queue. Checksums write themselves slowly, like careful handwriting. Copies flow to mirrors that make mirrors. A calm hall of reflections ensuring that nothing is lost. The operators trust the process, and the process rewards the trust by working without fuss. If an archive node wants to rest, it says so in a small, polite way, and the load shifts elsewhere. Nothing is strained. You could draw the flow with crayons and make it look like a braided river crossing a meadow. The gentle rhythm continues. The orbital mechanics are friendly when approached with patience. A collector that is too high in energy moves toward a lower energy environment by spending a little orientation time, letting light push against its sails. The push is very small, and so the motion is very gentle. A craft in the lower energy orbit wishing to rise does the opposite. It is a communal exercise, and the controllers watch it happen with the relief of gardeners seeing plants move toward the sun over days, not seconds. For larger changes, when the difference is measurable in firm numbers across the log, there is a network of mass drivers that flicker like slow fireflies, delivering packets of momentum that the recipients absorb with wide, forgiving nets. Momentum is passed around tenderly, like a warm loaf at a dinner that never ends. The gentle rhythm continues. Any talk of safety is handled with a soft tone. The swarm contains no single point whose failure would make a story. Even so, care, is taken. Redundancies exist not as a pile of spares, but as the very structure of the system. Nearby units can help, lending capacity when a neighbour rests or is updated. People stationed keep themselves with kindness too, swapping shifts when one needs more sleep, writing notes to each other that begin with thanks. If a dust event is expected to increase, fine filters are gently unrolled from their housings. They drift into place with the slow elegance of a curtain being drawn, making sure the breeze stays mild inside. Afterward, they roll back up. The logs record the act without flourish. The gentle rhythm continues. Sometimes a long, slow day includes a special task, like recalibrating a heliostat to make sure its light folds perfectly onto a distant receiver. Calibrations are the lullabies of engineering. The light is measured by a distant sensor, and a very gradual scan begins. The angle changes a tiny bit. The sensor nods. The signal rises and falls so gently that the record looks like the surface of a lake at dawn, almost flat. A slow hump here, a slow dip there. The peak is found and marked. The mount remembers. You save the new offset. The old offset is archived, not because you need it, but because archiving is what one does when one loves continuity. You can imagine the quiet, too, of the code that makes things just so. It is not aggressive code. It is conservative and measured, written with the same neatness that made the logbook pages a comfort. There are comments like little notes in the margin of a poem, explaining why a variable's range is set with such generosity, or how a limit is chosen to align not just with performance, but with sleep, with ease, with the knowledge that maintenance is a marathon of decades. When a module boots, it speaks first to itself, then to its neighbour, then to a nearby backbone node, and the conversation is the easiest kind, where everyone already understands the subject. If a glitch occurs, the module rests and tries again. It informs the team in a tone that feels like a friend saying, "I will take a moment." The gentle rhythm continues. It is natural to let your mind wander to the origin of materials. Mercury's rocks are brown and grey and full of old sunlight. Asteroids provide carbon and metals. The harvest is guided with the same restraint that everything else receives. Excavation is shallow, measured, mindful of the structure of the rock. Thermal machines tease volatiles out of shadows and send them along patient cold pipelines that snake through space like slow rivers beneath the stars. Electromagnetic catapults lift shipments without violence. Catchers gather them without impact. Each step is more lullaby than labour. Even the numbers that mark yields and rates look like slow, friendly waves when graphed across years. Residents within near-sun habitats experience a different but related cycle. They wake under light that warms the walls at a pace set by the station's temperament. Mornings are long if one wants them. There is no hurry to rush from dark to bright. They open small panels that reveal the star at ordinated angles, letting the glow fill a room like hot tea filling a cup. The air warms through radiant panels that never become too hot to touch. star, where line-of-sight communications dip into sleep for a moment. Relays carry the messages along routes that were chosen long ago with patience. The signals do not leap, they stroll. They take the path that stays inside established corridors. Timing is everything, and time is a friendly thing. The delay is gentle, almost reassuring. We sent you a note, and you will get it soon. When it arrives, it fits into the flow like a leaf joining a stream. The gentle rhythm continues. Shadows exist, of course, and they are soft and helpful. The structure of the swarm is arranged to avoid sharp shadows, except where needed. When a module must cool, a shade is allowed to pass across it, not abruptly, but with a feathered edge. The module's interior notes the touch of night and uses it to settle, to allow stresses to relax in the bonds. The polymers that hold the films on their frames shrink a breath's width, and then they are still. The metal remembers its ideal shape. Sensors hum a little quieter. Then the light returns, like a good friend going for a short walk and coming back with a peaceful smile. Reboosts for habitats are handled with the same gentle hand as everything else. Electrodynamic tethers unfurl like silk and glow only with what they need. They sip currents from the planetary magnetic field, and in exchange, they trade momentum with the big invisible structures that govern motion. The communities inside notice nothing but the continued steadiness of the floor beneath their feet. A few days later, the tether curls up again, folding itself back into a neat cassette that clicks closed with the softness of a well-made box. Team rituals anchor the weeks. There is a meeting, always in the same room, always with the blinds set at the same angle, and always with the same softly humming air. The agenda is a list of steady topics with occasional new old friends. The chair begins the session with a breath, and everyone follows. Minutes are recorded. Diagrams are gentle curves that fill boards with arcs that cross at friendly places. No one interrupts. Points are stated once and then allowed to settle. Action items are assigned, but they feel more like invitations to take a calm walk. The gentle rhythm continues. The centuries-long vision keeps the swarm healthy. Paint ages. Clues rest. Designs become simpler, not more complex as lessons accumulate. A younger engineer finds themselves surprised by how little needs to change. That longevity is an art that favors understatement and repetition. The best features of a module are those that almost fade into the background, the ones that show up in every drawing because they simply work. Joints that flex only within comfortable arcs, vents that open in slow, gentle degrees, coatings that tolerate a broad range of temperatures and respond sluggishly to change, just slow enough to avoid stress. Patterns that repeat across scales, allowing a spare part to be useful in 100 different places with only a tiny adjustment. The gentle rhythm continues. pressure vessels release nothing. Bearings roll so slowly that their lives extend beyond their drawings. Every equation resolves without tension. Every line of code completes a loop without impatience. The whole feels like a conversation between friends who do not need to fill silence with words. You could close your eyes and be in the maintenance bay, even if you are far away. You could imagine the texture of the brushed metal panel under your palm, warmed by a heat pipe behind it. You could imagine the sound of a distant distributor switching from one beam relay to another with a click that is almost too quiet to hear. You could imagine a chart on the wall whose axes are not labelled with scary extremes, but with calm middles. The green region covers almost all of it. The yellow is thin and soft around the edges. There is no red. The gentle rhythm continues. Habitat windows are not exactly windows, but they are window-like, and they transmit a carefully shaped light that arrives from the swarm's mirrors. The light is adjusted for human comfort, or the comfort of whatever gentle life grows inside. It is warm at breakfast. It is cool and dim near sleep. The cycle is long, and it forgives missed steps. You can move a day forward or back by a little and nothing complains. You can sit in the dim and listen to the quiet machinery singing its low, steady song. You can feel the slight vibration of pumps through the seat, a reminder that heat is flowing away like a river at night. The gentle rhythm continues. Around the midpoint of this journey, let your shoulders slacken another notch and let your jaw rest a little heavier. Still awake, comment the secret word, nebula. As you recline further into the flow of this story, imagine being part of the cleanup crew that never feels like cleanup because everything is already so well tended. Occasionally, a fragment of something older drifts along, perhaps a small clamp that slipped free decades ago, perhaps a flake of paint whose source is an entry in an ancient log. Buffers of electromagnetic haze convince it to slow. Nets that look like lace gather it. Compactors with soft hearts collect and reformat it into shapes that make sense again. There is a satisfaction here, a small one, like smoothing a wrinkle in a blanket. You might think of navigation lights, and they are soft too. They are not bright beacons. They are little glows that say, "I am here," to those who need to know. Lights blink with long measured intervals. The frequencies are chosen to be easy on eyes, easy on senses, easy on spirits. The pattern repeats so gently that you can predict the next blink without thinking. The watchers in the maintenance bay notice, but are not disturbed. The gentle rhythm continues. Even the language of alarms is domesticated. If a value leaves its comfortable corridor, the first words are a request. "Please check me when you have a moment," a module might say, translated into your preferred tongue and tone. It will ask again a little later if the anomaly persists, with just a touch more emphasis, like a friend clearing their throat at the end of a sentence. Only when the matter asks for true immediacy does the system speak in a firm voice, and even then, the quiet culture picks up the cue with practiced calm. Chairs turn, fingers move, procedures are followed as if rehearsed in a slow ballet. When the moment passes, a note is written to capture the lesson. The book becomes thicker by a page, and everyone returns to the kinder work of watching a well-tended world continue. Maintenance extends to ideas in this calm place. Designs are updated in archives that live like gardens. New files replace old ones only after long, thoughtful reviews. The older designs remain accessible, honored for what they taught, like paths that are no longer used but whose stones are preserved. Sometimes, late at night, a caretaker reads an old design document, tasting the flavor of another time in its typography and its assumptions. The present owes a bow to the past. The gentle rhythm continues. In the distance, beyond the most familiar orbits, platforms travel that are mostly empty, built not for use today, but as a cushion for tomorrow. Spare capacity lives here, asleep and content. When a need arises, this capacity wakes without fuss, finds the nearest leaf in the lattice, and settles into that place as if it had always been meant for it. The property of the swarm is that purpose unfolds at the pace of a breath. Suddenly and gradually at once, a new corridor has warmed, a new reflector has joined a chain, a new neighbor now blinks its soft hello. Logs grow by a few lines. A map adds a dot. The gentle rhythm continues. You may be curious about how weather works in deep space, and here too, the answer is comforting. There are solar winds that wax and wane, and there are clouds of particles from ancient comets and newer collisions. Forecasting is a careful craft, and it is practiced with the same quiet tone as everything else. Observatories watch not for drama, but for pattern. They consult models that describe fields and flows with curves that meet a little like the handwriting in a personal letter. A forecast is issued, a small increase expected to arrive in 3 days, lasting for 4, gentle taper. Maintenance schedules adjust a little to sidestep rough moments. It feels like bringing laundry in just before a sprinkle and then setting it out again under the soft sun afterward. Power management is like tending a fireplace in a cabin. You keep the coals glowing. You add logs not with a toss, but with a placement that appreciates the shape of the fire. Peaks in demand are smoothed. Troughs are filled soothingly. Batteries, where they exist, charge and discharge at rates that protect their chemistry. Superconducting loops in colder shadows store energy like a bear stores fat for winter, releasing it in a measured way when called. The managers watch the gauges, listen to the gentle notes that represent supply meeting demand, and adjust with patience. The gentle rhythm continues. Consider also the people who will grow up inside the gentle light of this neighborhood of orbits. Their stories will not be dominated by crises. Instead, they will be a tapestry of repeating patterns and small improvements. They will learn the art of maintenance as a language, the way children learn to sing. Polaris entries and phase angles. Yet, when you look at the right visualization, a map of motions whose axes are patience and gentle persuasion, you see the spirals and feel soothed by their predictability. The gentle rhythm continues. Navigation of people and goods between places in the swarm is achieved by vehicles that are designed to be boring on purpose.
Interiors are lined with soft fabrics and quiet floor lighting. Seats cradle without gripping. There is always a view, but the window is darkened just enough to keep glare out of your eyes. The vehicle departs without drama. It glides along a planned path that was optimized not for speed, but for the steady consumption of momentum credit. When it arrives, there is no jolt. A light on the bulkhead shifts from blue to green, and a soft tone plays, a little like a bell on a buoy in a good harbour. Meal times are restful in places like this. Food has the warmth of sunlight stored kindly. The electricity that cooked it came through the same channels that bend around the star, and the story of that energy is reassuring. You taste and smile and think, this is how a civilization learns to relax.
Somewhere, a maintenance worker writes in a log that a certain module's temperature has remained within its cozy band longer than forecast, and they append a small smiley face that is not in the official format, but which no one minds. The gentle rhythm continues. Climate control for interior spaces resembles the star-facing maintenance in its demeanor. Air moves quietly. Heat exchangers breathe. Humidity stays within the embrace of pleasantness. The machinery that accomplishes this is accessible, labeled, and arranged so that you can rest your hand on a panel and feel the pulse of life move through. When something needs attention, the panels open on hinge lines that are rounded and forgiving. The screws are captive, forever attached to their homes so that they never become lost. The filters slide in and out with the silky ease of a drawer that has been well kept for years. The culture around the swarm treats knowledge like a library. Apprentices learn to listen. The first lesson is how to listen to the pumps, then to read the gentle patterns in the charts, then to anticipate when a module will ask for help. There is no rush to mastery. The process itself is a comfort. The second lesson is how to make notes for others that will be a comfort to read. Instructions avoid sharp imperatives and choose phrases like, when you are ready and mindfully, and do not worry if this takes a moment. The third lesson is to appreciate the star and the silence because they are partners in the work. Outside, a service robot drifts along a rail that runs the edge of a large mirror. Its manipulators are folded in, and it looks like a resting bird. Every few minutes, a program asks it to extend an arm just this much to check a sensor housing. The arm unfolds, the check is logged, the arm folds back, the robot drifts to its next resting place. The dance lasts hours. The robot never tires. The gentle rhythm continues. In all of this, the essence of a Dyson swarm is not that it consumes a star, but that it learns, very slowly, to live near a star with grace. chooses to make it so. You find yourself at the end of a long shift, watching a panel that you repaired days ago. It has been operating without any new notes added to its record. The power traces align without jitter. The temperature trace is a slow sinusoid that repeats like a song you hum absent-mindedly. You finish your tea. You run your hand along the smooth edge of the console, feeling the soft warmth and the small imperfections in the surface that tell you this place has been used and cared for. You close the lock. You dim the lights. The star remains, glowing, always there, a metronome too slow for any but patient listeners. The gentle rhythm continues. This is how, over long years, a Dyson swarm becomes not a headline, but a habit. It maintains itself through legions of small kindnesses. It hosts lives that prefer quiet. It provides energy without asking for excitement in return. The routine of it becomes a calming presence. The idea of maintenance, once perhaps associated with urgency and drudgery, is now the very picture of ease. You imagine lying down in a habitat whose windows glow at a setting that your mind knows means sleep. The pumps whisper that heat is being carried away. The radiators drink night and pour day into the dark. Nothing asks anything of you except to rest. The gentle rhythm continues. Let yourself return gradually to where you are. Feel the surface beneath you. Let your breath be slow and soft, like the unhurried turning of a mirror toward the sun. You are safe, and in this imagined orbit among kind machines, everything important is quiet and well tended. If you enjoyed this calm drift through beautifully boring engineering, a gentle like and a soft subscribe